Okay, so I'm here with Dr. Bastin, who is going to take us on a little tour, to know a little bit more about Raffles.
Yes, with pleasure.
So what are you going to show us? Like, what is so interesting about this letter that you brought up?
This is a very small part of the Tang Holdings collections, but these are letters which have particular interest or point up particular. Here we have a very interesting letter written to his uncle from Penang in 1807, and as his uncle was interested in religious matters, Raffles decides to be a little provocative in a sense, in saying how tolerant he was towards Islam and how he admired the activities of the imams and so forth in Penang. Even more active, in fact, than some of the Methodists, which was a dig at his uncle, who was, of course, a Methodist.
I noticed he called Muslims Muslimen.
Yes, the Muslimen is a nice term, isn't it? Yeah.
And this, I noticed there was a little bit of Aramaic inside as well.
Yes, that's interesting. This is when Raffles, of course, is beginning his Oriental studies, and he wanted a Hebrew grammar. And he asks his cousin, could he send him one from London? And he specifies it. But quite clearly, he's already got into Hebrew, in a sense, and is able to write the Hebrew script.
He did it actually pretty well, very neatly.
Very neatly, yes. It's the only example I know that he ever wrote a Hebrew script. So it's quite interesting as a letter, and one of the reasons it was put out.
Has he ever written in other languages as well?
It was thought that there were no actual letters of Raffles in Malay, but there a couple have turned up. Largely, of course, he, whenever he's writing to Malay rulers and so forth, he wrote an English version and had his Malay scribes translate it. And this has a very important point, actually, because Raffles is blamed a lot for the Palembang massacre of 1811, where he was advocating that the Dutch be thrown out of Palembang as a prelude to the British conquest of Java. And the Dutch later they came up with these Malay letters. But, of course, the Malay letters weren't written by Raffles. And what we do have is Raffles' English versions of these letters. And they're not quite what the Dutch say they were. They're different, in fact, from the actual letters that the Sultan of Palembang received. These are Oriental scripts. Very, very few examples of that, Raffles.
That's interesting to note. Never throw away any of your SMSs.
No, certainly not.
Always good evidence. Can clear you in history.
Clear, yes.
Well, you've been interested in Raffles for a long time. How long does that date back?
Yes, as you said before, time is subjective. I've been interested in Raffles since I went up to Oxford in the 1950s. So it's a long time ago.
Now, tell us what is here. Like, I see.
These are coins that were issued during Raffles' administration in Java, and there are various denominations. Of course, I suppose the commercially valuable ones are the silver ones, silver rupees. But the interesting ones are, in fact, the tin ones, because of low denominations, but because the tin itself came from the island of Bangka.
And which ones are the tin ones?
Which are the tin ones? I can't see. They're the rather, according to my spectacles, the ones that are shedding their side. Let's see. Down the bottom there, for example, that one there. And of course, tin has the great disadvantage that it disintegrates, and that's whereas the silver, of course, the copper. This is interesting. The medal that was issued to the sepoys who took part in the British conquest of Java.
It's very well kept.
It's very well kept. Yes, it's silver. There is a flaw, in fact, in these medals, which are not just in this one, but there's sometimes a crack appears. But this is a pictorial representation of the Battle of Cornelis, where the Dutch forces, or the Franco-Dutch forces, were defeated by the British, and the conquest of Java became a British fact.
It is pretty amazing that they managed to put so much detail even back then.
Yes, in the actual medal itself, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, it's it's an imaginary.
1811 and so much detail.
So much. Yes. Well,
And very artistic as well.
Yes.
Must be worth a lot.
Yes. Well, they did strike it also in gold, and that was given to British officers, and they are very, very difficult to obtain. The gold medal.
I'm sure.
Yeah.